Hey guys, working on some reviews for you, but I got one here that's a little bit different from other things that I've done. As you can see, it's gonna be on a mobile game. It's gonna be my first mobile review. Well, why? Well, because this game is a game I've been following for a very long time and was very excited and hyped up for its release. Now, way back in 2011 on Kickstarter, they were making pitches and promises of this awesome, what I considered the holy grail of space sims: exploration, diplomacy, away teams, building your ship, naming your crew, XCOM type gameplay with space battles and management and all this other stuff. Well, and that was before Kickstarter really took off, before, Double Fine and all that, so they didn't quite earn as much money as they probably would have now. And that game was called Star Command. Now, here we are, 2 years later, and not one, but two Kickstarters later, and arguably a bit of controversy behind how long it took to develop the game and the willingness of the developers to go on message forums and Reddit and battle with their detractors and naysayers about the game. Here we are, the day has finally come, Star Command is out. So, does it deliver on its original promises? Is it a badass game, and is it worth your money? Let's find out. Now, Star Command was an extremely ambitious project, making lots of promises with a ridiculously small dev team of one coder, but mostly the two Combs brothers themselves.
We had originally had it as a sandbox style game, but again, for a three-person team, it was just becoming a question of when do we want this to come out? 4 years or 2? And so eventually we just decided, hey, we're just going to have to make this a little bit more linear.
And unfortunately, they bit off way more than they could chew, and that's evident from the long development time and the dropping of important core features touted in the Kickstarter. Things like diplomacy, away team missions, exploring derelict ships, discovering strange planets, and a bunch of other things, all of which never materialized in the current game.
The short answer is no, the long answer is kind of. But it isn't as robust as we had originally hoped, but that's the way it goes.
Instead, what we have essentially is a bare-bones version of the Star Command we may have expected. Even the developers themselves admit the game is only 30% of their original vision. And it shows. Nearly every encounter with alien races results in a battle. No matter what dialogue options you pick, they are all false choices, leading to pretty much the same battle. And make no mistake, in terms of combat, Star Command is not a strategy game. Instead of selecting areas on the enemy ship to try to disable or shoot off, you instead engage in reflex-based minigames. Weapon stations must be manned in order to charge up, and certain stations in the games require ammo tokens to be generated in order to fire. So like in a cow clicker, when they are generated, they pop up in the room, you click it, then click the fire button. Depending on how quickly your fingers are, you can score a little bit of damage or a good amount of damage to the enemy ship. You then evade enemy attacks by waiting around to click on dodge tokens and shield tokens and using them at the right times. Now, if your shields go down, the enemy beams over an invading away team, which you must deal with by assigning crew to the bridge, which turns them into security officers with phasers. Now, managing how many red shirts you have while supporting them with blue shirts, science officers which heal your crew, is really the key to victory. Engineers in orange shirts repair the ship. However, there's no reason to make repairs in battle unless a specific room has been disabled by pure chance, as fires don't really spread. So wait to repair till the battle is over, especially since moving around with hull breaches is suicide. Get too close to one hull breach without your shields up, and your crew and enemies alike get sucked out and killed instantly. Tanya Lopez! which is actually a pretty good method for getting rid of enemies. Now in this sense, Star Command is far more about time and crew management in increasingly difficult battles than it is about, exploration, diplomacy, discovery, or strategy, which is a shame. If you don't like minigames, you won't much like the combat offered here, as every mission and battle starts to feel exactly the same after a while. Now after these battles, there's a lot of tedious downtime cleaning up the damage. Now, I think it's actually kind of thematic, but I do wish it could be sped up once out of combat and danger. Something like a ×3 or a ×5 time accelerator would have done the trick nicely. Also, contrary to what I expected, Star Command is extremely linear. And while there's a galactic map which seems large and open, going to any other location other than your objective at the time results in an immediate fight, a grindy fight with a random enemy. This next thing pisses me off because as far as I can tell, there are locations on the map that you can never even reach, and they're grayed out even after completing the main game. What's the point in putting a navigation waypoint there like you're tricking us? The sun, the moon, look at all these different areas that you think you can travel to and you're like, wow, look at this epic galaxy and all these different missions. It's not. You can't ever go there. Even after completing the main game, I still have not found a way to go to these locations. That is just lame. Why won't you let me go to Uranus? What is there is only a fraction of these locations, and the game would take you about 2 hours to 2 hours and 30 minutes to complete. I did like that your crew would level up with experience, unlocking special abilities that you could activate like faster firing speeds, invulnerability to enemy weapons, auto repairing, and other cool things like that. Your ship is also upgradable with individual thematic and useful upgrades to rooms that you have selected. They are even represented visually in the game, adding new consoles and animations to that room. Now in this department, Star Command succeeds with flying colors. The beautiful, absolutely beautiful pixel art combined with the hand-drawn screens and impressive looking space backgrounds are just fantastic. I love the ship designs and all the various creative alien races you'll meet along the way. The game has a great sense of humor. Crew and aliens alike explode in a shower of blood. This game is just so beautiful to look at. When a ship hails you, you even get this old school cool animated conversation segment. Hey little guy. Hey. Bite my finger. Greetings. I like you too. These really are the game's greatest strengths, and why you might want to buy the game. They might even be worth the price of admission just for these alone. Unfortunately, the game was pretty unstable during my time with it. Save often. Save often. Okay, save often. Because this game will randomly crash, and you're going to lose a good amount of work and preparation, especially the battles, okay? The frame rate also starts to drop after continued gameplay and in the larger engagements. Engineers will often annoyingly attempt to repair fires by standing inside them. And when things start to get hectic, it's sometimes difficult to touch and click on individual crew members when they're all bunched up, which is the best tactic. You will be fumbling around, clicking on the wrong person, accidentally making them go to some other location you didn't want. Now this game is going to be compared to FTL a lot. I even reviewed FTL, and I love it, but I think the comparison is a little bit unfair. Okay, this is a mobile game, so let's address this right away. Star Command is by far the better looking game than FTL, but in every other department, nah, it just isn't the same brand of strategy game. It stays far closer to what mobile users find comfortable and what's become the norm there, with mini games and time management gameplay. It's also much shorter and really has next to no replay value, nowhere near the same replay value as to FTL. Now, of course, it's only $3 and it's on an app store. Okay, War Balloon plans to port this game over to the Android first and then the PC. But God, I hope that they add a few more features before bringing it over to the PC crew, because this game's gonna need it in order to compete. One final thing I must mention that really pisses me off about Star Command is the bullshit ending. It essentially puts you in this cop-out loop where after you defeat the main storyline, everything is going to repeat with a new ship that you select at the end of the game. Wow, that sounds cool. And these ship designs are awesome, I thought. Unfortunately, the ship that you get, although having more empty spaces for new rooms, has the same exact amount of crew to man it, which makes no sense. 10 crew, even though being twice or 3 times as large as the original ship, making it even harder to play with this new ship as opposed to the starter one. And are they more powerful? Do they get better weapons or even more weapon-based rooms? No! You are still only limited to 2 weapon rooms. Not like it matters there's only 3 weapons in the game: lasers, machine guns, or the ammo-generating plasma torpedo. Now this is extremely frustrating, especially with so much more ground to cover on a new ship when enemies beam over, and it's the best tactic to leave 2 crew members in each room. Now they try to offset this with grenades and sentry rooms in the larger types, but you still need ammo counters, so you need crew in those rooms, okay, when there are so few crew left to defend the ship. To be perfectly honest, it feels as if the developers of Star Command rushed the ending and just wanted to push this game out as soon as possible to appease all of the people who have been waiting for 2 years. There's been absolutely no balance done for the new larger ships. They don't feel any more powerful or any more interesting as they do in, say, a game like FTL. They give you absolutely no reason to continue to play the game. It really feels like an episodic type game, and if they would have told us that up front, maybe a lot of this other stuff would have made sense. However, it is this kind of stuff that holds Star Command back from being a better game. It does feel incomplete, it does feel pushed out the door in order to just get it over with. And so basically the sequential missions, instead of open exploration, it's not sandbox, even though it's perfect for it. The minigame combat, instead of strategy-based weapon and vital component targeting. It's just some may be willing to embrace these mechanics and forgive the missing elements from the original Kickstarter pitch simply because the game is so beautiful to look at and it gives a serious go at that holy grail idea with just being a nice homage to Star Trek. But the reality is, and a lot of game reviewers are missing it, it's getting very good reviews, is that the game fails to deliver on its original promises. And ultimately, it's a quite shallow experience. So that brings me to my final verdict for Star Command. It's a 5 out of 10. It's an average space micromanagement game that has some great visuals and huge potential. And I'm sure if we get to see the other 70% of the game's original vision, it would be an amazing game. However, at this time, with all the bugs, issues, and odd, frustrating design decisions, it's not quite where it needs to be. Star Command does have the one advantage, though, of being on the App Store. There's really nothing like it in mobile games. And since most mobile games on the iPhone, iPad, Android are garbage in comparison, this one was an automatic buy from me, especially at $3. And at that price point, I encourage you to give it a go as well, only if you have an iPad. Hopefully then it does well enough that we'll see something closer to the original vision. Maybe in the upcoming Contraband section, or when they unlock the rest of the locations on the galaxy map and add some random mission generation so it's not all the same. I can only hope that the content that they add will have more of a focus on the original vision for the game. Until then, I'll see you guys on the next Angry Joe Show.